Hi guys, welcome back to another Hugh Jeffries video. In this video, I'm going to be restoring a Sony Xperia X. This is my first ever Sony phone that I've owned, and it currently has a destroyed LCD, cracked glass, and a badly scratched frame and back. This phone was released back in 2016 and is powered by a Snapdragon 650 processor with 3 gigs of RAM. From these specs and overall construction, I would class this as a low to mid-ranged Android smartphone. I came across this phone in an Android parts lot I purchased for $40 a few months ago. In this lot, I got two Galaxy S4s, a Galaxy S5, a Galaxy J7 Pro, and the Sony Xperia X. Now I have already repaired some of the devices in this tech lot, such as the Galaxy S4, but there's still a few phones in here which I've yet to work on. Coming back to the Sony, I'm going to be needing a replacement display and frame, as well as the back door. It's also a good measure to change the battery when restoring a phone, so I'm going to be putting a new one of those in. Now to get into the phone, you'll need to start at the back, which is actually held in with adhesive, which is always a little bit of a pain. However, the back of this is actually a very thin piece of metal, so it doesn't shatter like any of the Galaxy phones when you try and get into it. And because it appears that it's already been worked on before, the back came off extremely easy. Once I was inside the phone, I could remove 3 screws and take off the plastic retaining bracket, and then I could just disconnect all of the flex cables connecting to the motherboard. I'll also remove the camera and remove the 3 screws that actually hold the motherboard in place. Removing this metal bracket, we can take out the front facing camera, and it's now time to remove the motherboard. Making sure to remove the SIM tray, I'll need to pry it up with something so I can remove it from the phone. Once the board is out, we can then start working on the battery. Now, if you've ever worked on an iPhone, you'll know these type of adhesive strips very well. And of course, I broke both of these because unlike the iPhone, there was nothing to remove which could give me more clearance and allow me to easily remove the tabs. Now, from watching this back, I believe it's probably best if you attach tweezers and then twist them around so it sort of slowly pulls them out. However, when I was doing this, I didn't think of that method, so I snapped both of those off. And now that I couldn't get the tabs out, I had to resort to the prying method. Now, I used a spudger for this, which actually worked, but unfortunately, I sort of tore the back off the battery and also ripped the flex cable that goes underneath it, but we'll take a look at that later on. I can move up to the top of the phone and remove the earpiece speaker and the little sort of contact piece that goes between the processor and the heat pipes. Now, a small little detail here is I'll need to remove this little tab that slides out of the SIM tray that just sort of has the phone's information on it, and I'll put that in first with the new frame. You can see the new frame looks like it's just been spray painted. I did purchase it like this. I believe it's obviously been refurbished up or something like that. I can install this little thermal contact pad back in, and now I can move across to the volume and power buttons. Now you can see here on the old frame that I ripped the cable in the battery removal process, so I had to order a new cable for this, but I'll also need to take out the buttons and power button to transfer across to the new frame, as well as the speaker, which is glued onto the cable. With 1 screw and a few plastic clips and some adhesive loosened, this whole assembly comes out of the phone. Now, the fingerprint reader for this phone is actually on the power button, which I think is a pretty neat addition. You can see the ripped cable, and that was just from me trying to pry up the battery because I couldn't get out those adhesive tabs. Now, I'll need to transfer across the power button, which just is held in by a connector, so it just clips back on. I'll also need to disconnect the speaker from the old flex cable, and you'll need to remove these little clips on top. Then the antenna sitting on top is just held in by glue. Now I'll apply some adhesive, which will keep it adhered to the new flex cable, so I can press that down, making sure to align it correctly, as the contact pins for the connection to the speaker are located on that flex cable. With the speaker attached, it's time to reinstall it into the frame. I attached the power button and fingerprint reader in first, as it needed to be aligned correctly. Once that's aligned, I'll need to transfer across these buttons into the side of the frame, and then I can actually just push this piece back into place and it just snaps right in, and align everything up. I'll also press the speaker into place, which just kind of clips and sits in, and then I can install the 1 Phillips screw. Lifting up the speaker, I can install the micro USB connector, and everything is good to go. I can then install the motherboard back into the phone, making sure to route the cables correctly so that they're above the board and can be connected back in. With the board positioned correctly, I can press it down to seat it into place and start connecting all of the flex cables that connect onto the motherboard in various spots. It's good to see that many of these components are modular and can be replaced. However, the plastic frame of the phone kinda lets down on the quality side of things. Making sure to install the brackets and the 3 screws holding the board into place, I can install the rear facing camera back into the frame. The next step was to give the inside a bit of a clean to remove any of the dirt or grime that is inside the new frame. You can see the marks on the underside of the LCD didn't come off, as I believe that's actually paint from the frame. I'm also going to install a brand new battery as I slightly damaged the old one in the removal process. I used one piece of adhesive to keep the battery in place, but make it easy enough if I ever need to remove it again. I'll install this retaining piece and its 3 screws, connect up the battery, and test out the phone. You can see that it successfully booted, and with some quick testing, the phone was ready to go. I could insert a SIM card tray and give the inside of the phone one last clean before we seal it back up. With the replacement panel, I can remove the protective film on the adhesive and position it in place, pressing it down evenly across all sides. Powering the phone back on, you'll notice that it's still filled with the previous owner's data. So I removed their account from settings and performed a factory reset to remove any of their data. It was clear they couldn't do this as the screen was absolutely destroyed. After a few minutes, the phone rebooted and was on the setup screen, and I could continue with the setup process. After a few steps, we're all ready to go and the phone is officially back up and running. I can remove the plastic film that goes on top of the phone, and this completes the restoration. So this is it, the Sony Xperia X, which has now been restored back into working condition. The phone itself wasn't too difficult to repair, although those battery adhesive strips did provide a little bit of trouble. The rest of the phone itself though was relatively modular and easy to repair. The frame unfortunately is made of plastic, which makes the overall build construction of the phone sort of feel very cheap. The total cost I spent on this device was around $50 to get everything up and running with the new screen, frame, battery, and new back panel. This phone is running Android 7.1.1 and is a 32GB unit with a Snapdragon 650 processor and 3GB of RAM. And on that note, this has been a Hugh Jeffries video. If you like what you saw, hit that subscribe button and consider checking out the phone restoration and Android playlists for more videos just like this one. Also make sure to follow me on my social media, link for which is down in the description. That's all for this video, and I'll catch you guys next time.